Hi everybody! Today we are going to be talking about weapon skill sets. Here we are going to look into different stats you may find useful for weapon skill sets. We will also be talking about how you can review weapon skills on BG Wiki to know where you should kind of lean towards for specific sets. I do recommend testing out any builds just in case if you have something better than what is mentioned as well. Let's begin! Let's break down a couple of different weapon skill descriptions to help better understand what we are looking at. Let's start with Savage Blade, as it is a very common weapon skill. Savage Blade mentions that it is a 2-hit weapon skill. This is very important to note. But Claire, why is it important to note? One of the stats you'll hear commonly among weapon skills is weapon skill damage. Weapon skill damage is calculated towards the first hit of a weapon skill. Yep, you heard correctly. It is only applied to the first hit of a weapon skill and not towards all hits. This means weapon skills that are single hit or are low in the amount of hits, like Savage Blade here, can benefit more from weapon skill damage than, let's say, a 5-hit weapon skill. Let's continue looking at Savage Blade here. It indicates damage varies with TP. This means that the FTP modifier has a damage increase calculation. What is FTP? FTP stands for TP multiplier. This multiplier is used for your base damage when performing a weapon skill. If we look at Savage Blade on BG Wiki, we can see that at 1000 TP it has an FTP of 4.0, but at 2000 it jumps up to 10.25. This is a 6.25 increase. Should we go to 3000? For an additional 1000 TP, we only gain 3.5. which is less than weapon skilling at 1000 TP. Best to weapon skill at 2000 for this weapon skill, as it's the greatest bang for your buck. You can utilize TP bonus plus gear to help close the gap without actually hitting 2k TP. For example, if you have augmented your Moonshade earring for Wings of the Goddess with TP bonus plus 250, you only need 1750 TP to gain the same benefit as having 2000 for Savage Blade. If we keep going, Savage Blade mentions that it is a physical type weapon skill. This means we only want physical type stats for this particular weapon skill. As we'll see later on, there are some magic-based weapon skills and hybrid weapon skills as well. Now we go down to stats. Savage Blade gains 50% from strength and 50% from mind. Sadly, these stat modifiers won't really show much of an increase towards the weapon skill. But, big but here, if you remember from our equipment breakdown that strength is also an attack modifier. Your weapon skill is still going to go against a monster's defense. If you don't want your weapon skill to get resisted, you will still want to include this strength stat and attack if you are not attack capped against the particular monster. Oh, you are attack capped with buffs? Well, you can use a stat that was introduced in 2018 called Physical Damage Limit. This increases the physical difference, or PDIF, cap, which can help you deal more damage if you are already hitting this particular cap. How do you know if you hit the PDIF cap? This is mainly through trial and error, sadly. Finding out if getting certain buffs is helping you hit consistent numbers and it doesn't go any higher, or which content you're reaching those consistent high numbers with no changes. Sticking to physical damage types a little longer, let's take a look at Resolution. Resolution is a 5-hit weapon skill. Like mentioned earlier, this means that weapon skill damage may not benefit us so well. We can see that the stat modifier for Resolution is 73 to 85% strength depending on how many points you have into this weapon skill. With this being above, we'll say a good approximation for stat modifiers is roughly 60%. So with that note, strength would help us in regards to this weapon skill. This weapon skill also has an attack modifier, which means that strength stat will be bigger boon due to the attack it provides. Now, how can we make Resolution potentially hit harder if weapon skill damage isn't useful? We can look at multi-attack. Multi-attack can be checked on every hit of this weapon skill and can potentially make this an 8-hit weapon skill for extra damage. As described in the TP set video, multi-attack does have a check process, so please review your gear to ensure you have the best chance for this to proc. One thing to also note, down at the bottom of this weapon skill, it is mentioned that FTP can transfer across all hits, while Savage Blade it's just the first hit, when equipping the elemental Gorgets. This can be down to the specific elemental Gorget, like the Light Gorget, if you haven't farmed all of the Gorgets, or merged them all together yet. If you did merge them all together, then you can just use the Photia Gorget. While the FTP isn't that high in this weapon skill, it is still good to note for if you're looking into other weapon skills. Now let's compare two weapon skills that are very similar to each other but have one slight difference. Let's take a look at Leaden Salute and True Flight. Both of these weapon skills are range type weapon skills. Unlike Savage Blade though, these are both magical weapon skills, which means they are calculated differently. Just like Savage Blade though, these both do have damage varies with TP in their description, meaning that we should probably look at the FTP modifiers. But unlike Savage Blade, the jumps in FTP aren't as great. These jumps are only going for about 2 to 3 point differences between each one. Yes, you'll have a greater damage output at 3000, but it may not be fully necessary due to how much time it takes you to gain that much. With these being mythic weapon skills, if you have the corresponding mythic attached, you will get also a greater bonus, plus you'll earn Aftermath. Otherwise, spamming at 1000 TP may be worth it. As you can see, these both have a stat modifier of Agility 100. This means that your agility can actually be helpful in your damage for this weapon skill as well. Another thing you might notice is that there is a D stat, which states that your damage is also based off of your agility going against the monster's intelligence, which will make you really want to stack agility, but it's all about balance when looking at your equipment. You can still build weapon skill damage towards these weapon skills, but you can also include stats like magic attack bonus, which goes against the monster's magic defense, and magic accuracy to ensure that your weapon skill does not get resisted, and magic damage to increase your base damage for your weapon skill. Unlike physical weapon skills, your magical weapon skills can also be affected by weather and day bonuses. This can either be helpful or hinder your damage. As you can see, Leaden Salute is a dark elemental type, while True Flight is a light elemental type. Salute gets boosted during dark weather or on Dark's day, while True Flight is the opposite, where it'll get boosted on Light's day or Light's weather. And just like the counter effect, if you use True Flight during dark weather or Dark's day, it'll have a negative impact on your weapon skill. Similarly, they both can gain bonuses from affinity equipment. You may have heard of a Pixie Hairpin +1 from Corsair Guides, which provides Dark Elemental affinity, unlike what the description indicates as Dark Elemental magic attack bonus. For the light side, you will see items like the Weatherspoon Ring or Weatherspoon Ring +1, which indicates light elemental damage increase. This is also affinity and not magic attack bonus, as it is calculated differently. Moving on to the last weapon skill type of hybrid weapon skills, let's take a look at Blade Chi. These weapon skills are unique as they take physical weapon skills and add magical components. The base damage of these weapon skills are calculated the same way as physical weapon skills, so we will want to look at the stats of this weapon skill. This is 30% strength and 30% intelligence for modifiers, so not that great. Unlike magical weapon skills, it does not have a D-stat. But like physical weapon skills, they do go against the PDIF cap. With Blade Chi being a 2-hit weapon skill damage will be beneficial as it calculates towards the physical damage as well as the duplicated magical damage. Please note that magic attack bonus and magic accuracy are also beneficial in this case due to the magic calculation. As damage varies with TP on this weapon skill, we can take a look at those FTP modifiers. We go from 0.5 to 1.375 to 2.25. So the jump from 1 to 2000 is a 0.8 difference, while at 3000 it is a 0.9. As there isn't much difference between 2000 and 3000, you might find it better damage output at 2000 if you use TP bonus equipment. With how fast ninjas can get TP, this may not be an unreasonable goal. As magic damage still applies to this weapon skill, so do the normal magic modifiers like magic affinity. While the Kumpur necklace does have earth affinity on it, you may have other pieces of equipment that might benefit this weapon skill more, and will want to test them out. As hybrid weapon skills also go against the PDIF cap like mentioned earlier, you can use physical damage limit equipment if you notice that you are stuck on the maximum amount of damage your weapon skill can perform based off your buffs. Now Claire, you kept picking weapon skills that are all damage varies with TP. Funny enough, this was actually very unintentional. How do you know when FTP may not be worth looking at? To be honest, it's best to always take a look at the end of the weapon skill description to see what to lean towards in your gear. For example, Full Break does not have any mention of what TP is used for. In this instance, it mentions lowers target's attack, defense, accuracy, and evasion. If we look at BG Wiki, we can see that it is an effect duration with different TP values. As this is an effect, it can still get resisted. I recommend using magic accuracy to help avoid that resistance rate. Yes, your damage may not be that great, but to be honest, no one really uses this weapon skill for its damage. Please also look at the note section of this weapon skill. They indicate that the defense down from this weapon skill does not stack with other weapon skills or ability of its kind. This can be useful when coming up with strategies with multiple weapon users. Another example would be Merker. Merker doesn't actually target a monster in order to be used. As noted in the notes section of BG Wiki, you will still need to be within 30 yalms of a monster. Basically, this is within range of being able to draw your weapon. This one mentions amount of MP restored varies with TP. So here is another one where you'll want to look at the TP modifiers to see what percentage you will get in return based off of when you are using it. Please note that not all weapon skills have been fully tested to provide accurate information. If you have tested this information and would like to update the information available on BG Wiki, I highly recommend it. I'm still learning about so many weapon skill builds and having fun testing different sets myself to find out what works best for what I have. I hope this breakdown can help new or returning players, or even players that are just unsure of how to review a weapon skill to determine what might be useful. Until the next video, bye-bye!